Hello. Right, you're the first person on. I'll just try and sit back a bit, so hopefully I'm more in frame. But yeah, I don't know if the notifications have only just gone out, but normally you start one of these streams, you get like 30 odd people join within sort of 20 seconds. At the moment it says it's been on for a minute and a bit, but it says 2 watching now, so hopefully it'll start going up. Hello. It's an Avon CT12, yeah, you can see it's the CT12 because there's no drinking tube on here. Yeah, it's not an S10. Alright, cool. Have you tried the drinking tube system on it? Well, they don't test you for asbestos poisoning if you ever have a lung x-ray taken. There you can see it. And I last had a lung x-ray taken, I think it was this year, like June, July time this year, and that was all fine, so I have no asbestos in my lungs. Right, Richard. I've got something like 90 masks. No, don't know what that is. I mean, when I descaled it. It's not the same connector as a GP7 drinking tube, the MP4B. This one's the Avon CT12, which is actually my favourite mask in my collection, in terms of like comfort and practicality. Yeah, O1A1's there. I'm not going to get it down straight away if people ask. You'll have to ID whichever filter you've got against filters that are known to contain asbestos. So, I don't have psychic abilities, so you'll obviously have to figure that out for yourself. But if it's a World War II filter, it most likely contains asbestos. If it's a Soviet filter, it most likely contains asbestos. If it's a NATO filter before the 1960s, it could contain asbestos, but in general just don't breathe for old filters, full stop. Right, it says there are 38 people watching now, so I guess it's finally sent the notifications out for it, because sometimes it just doesn't seem to do that, you know, sensibly. If I get time, I'll do a Christmas stream, but I don't know if I will. It won't be a very long stream if I do. You're probably going to have to pay over £100 for this sort of box respirator from World War I. But again, you're going to have to find somewhere where you know it's going to be genuine. Alright, Richard, just do a video, I guess, when you've got it working and all set up. Hello to everybody just joining. Waiting for people to ask questions now, because there's 40 people on apparently, but not many people are asking things. Don't throw it away, because it can be dangerous if you throw it away for the people dealing with it. Just store it somewhere. Favourite firearms, that one. If you mean why do I have so many gas masks, because I collect them, that's why. That's not a bad price for a GP7, but I don't personally think the GP7 is a very good mask. So, you know, that's my complaint with the GP7 really, is that I don't think it's actually a very good mask itself. Let me look at the Chinese MF11. Oh, that's the FMJ05. Yeah, that's a good mask as long as you get one in your size. Because I find them interesting. You're kind of asking me a question I can't really answer there. In terms of deactivated firearms or what? In terms of deactivated firearms, 5. I've got 2 replicas, so that's 7. If you include both my air rifles, that's 9. Now this is my favourite one I own. There's not really a best, it's up to you to kind of think what you like the most features wise. No, I've never played H1Z1. Let's have a look at the M59. So it looks a bit like a Draeger M65, but it's obviously not the exact same design, but yeah. Yeah, it looks quite alright. No idea, Stylo. Don't see why he's got a problem with you having an interest in something. I'll have a look at that. I'd assume that would be a World War II rebreather, wouldn't it? There's pictures, if you Google it, of it being used of like a house fire scenario. So yeah, it looks like a rebreather, or like a firefighter's mask, I'd guess. It looks like a GM30 or a GM38 that's been converted to work as a rebreather. Yeah, I remember the kettle video because I made it. Firearms, if you mean actual firearms and not air rifles, there was a 20 gauge shotgun I fired, and a 22 long rifle bolt action, but I have no idea which models of gun they were because it was before I even did the YouTube videos. It was kind of before I was actually interested in guns all that much, so, you know, that's the problem there. I can't really, if otherwise I'd have filmed it and stuck it on here, but... East Germany only made industrial masks as far as I'm aware. All the East German military masks were just bought in from the Soviet Union. They put them in their own bags, but they didn't actually produce their own masks. Yeah, £15 is very good for an S6. You could probably use bicycle tyre repair stuff to patch a rubber hole in the gas mask. That probably would work. If it's like really seriously damaged, then no. But if it's a little rip, you could either use duct tape or you could use, yeah, bicycle repair stuff. Rebreathers recycle the air you exhale. So they scrub the carbon dioxide out, and then you get oxygen back, or air basically back. So every time, the longer you're wearing a rebreather, the less and less breathable air there is, but it doesn't require a filter, so you can use it in an environment with no oxygen, or that's like totally poisonous. Yeah, an ABEC P3 filter is pretty much the same thing as a CBRN filter. Well, when I try and grow a beard, I can never grow a very good one, because it's really patchy, and it wouldn't work with gas masks anyway, so I'm clean shaven most of the time. I use a gas mask when I'm volunteering sometimes, or a half face mask, to avoid allergy sort of stuff, dust getting down me. But I've never had to use one in an emergency situation, no. There's been other times I've been preparing chemicals, and I've obviously worn a mask for that, because as I've got them, it's safer to not risk breathing in some of those. Yeah, I built my own positive pressure system, Rich. I don't know if you've seen a video on it, but I don't think it's somewhere where I can conveniently get at it right now. But what I did was, because I think it's down there somewhere, but I'd have to dig out a load of stuff, is I got a camping mattress inflator, stuck a 40mm filter on top, which was quite easy to do with how the attachments for it worked. And then you can actually just connect the gas mask hose to the pipe, so it's quite an easy way of doing it. I quite like Marpat, but Marpat was certainly better than UCP, but Multicam's quite good as well. I'll be streaming for about an hour, or just over an hour, so I've done 12 minutes so far. Yeah, I've already said loads of times I work a second job as well as YouTube. If it's in date, potentially, but if it's out of date, obviously not. If I was paying £17 for a single filter, I'd want it to have several years on the date, to be honest. Yeah, sorry to hear that, Alex, but yeah. I'm very careful and slow when I'm cutting for that reason. If it's got 5 years on, that's not too bad. I prefer battle rifles personally, but I obviously don't have to carry around and use them in combat. Probably it's situationally dependent, but a battle rifle at least works in more scenarios, even if it's heavier and you can carry less ammo. If you mean, do you mean American Civil War? Or what Civil War do you mean, Alex? Yeah, I'll have a look and see if I've seen it. Well, is that a modern Sturmgewehr, like clone type thing? See, when I Google it, the ones coming up look like modern versions of STGs. Yeah, that's sort of fairly cool then, as long as it's sort of functionally the same as the old one. American Civil War. Well, the best ones were the Whitworth rifles, weren't they? But they were very expensive and there weren't many of them made. So probably just one of like the standard Springfield or Enfield sort of rifled muskets. If you've got an idea, yeah, carry on. Oh, I didn't even know they did camo Santa hats. I suppose that doesn't surprise me, but yeah, I've just got this one on. I'll just lean back a bit again so I'm more in frame, because this is the annoying thing with this webcam. I can never seem to get it positioned where I always stay in frame. As soon as I slouch down a bit in the chair, I always disappear. Now, I've done videos on the M51. It was alright for when it came out, but it's obviously horribly obsolete now. Ideally, I'd like a 1080p webcam, but I've not actually seen that many for sale that aren't ridiculously expensive. Now, Christmas isn't till the 25th, but obviously we're pretty close to that now, aren't we? I really don't know actually what branch I'd want to serve in. If there was like the, because I know some militaries have like the chemical detachment kind of ones, that would be the ones I'd find the most interesting, to be honest. Yeah, $24.99 is very good for FMJ05. I'm just going to call it the FMJ05 because that's the main name it used, not the MF11. I think the MF11 is the export name, FMJ05 is the domestic Chinese name. I'll just see if I can tilt it down ever so slightly. Problem is it tends to sort of push itself back up as soon as you I don't think I'm actually going to be able to get it looking any further down because I think it sort of has a height. It sort of always seems to reset itself to on the sort of swivel thing it's on. But I am sort of centre frame at the moment, I guess. Deactivated rifles aren't cheap, but you don't need a gun license to own them, so it's the exact opposite of what you said. But they're generally a few £100s. They're going up in price and they're making them do less and less stuff, so that's why I'm not really interested in getting any more deacs at the moment. What, so do you mean if I could choose a country based on their combat boots? The best ones I've ever worn are German ones, but... GM30 is a very bad mask. I mean, if you're collecting it, obviously it's interesting. In terms of how well it was made, it was awful. I guess they're like anywhere above £30. I don't really know, because it's going to depend on the condition. Does it come with the tin and everything else? Right, hello, back to the USA, Keith. The Swiss gas masks I've all seen come with their own type of filters, not German filters, so I don't know. That might be a surplus seller doing that. So, do you mean like one of those old record player kind of things? Or do you mean something totally different? Yeah, the good thing though is because the Denix replicas, as I've shown before, you can actually own because they're pre-1870 designs or whatever, whereas when they're more modern designs, that's when the law says you can't have them for some stupid reason. Why the cut-off date is the 1870s, I don't know. It means Wild West guns are okay, everything more modern's not. Now I'd have no use for a bomb disposal suit, and it would take up even more room in the house I don't really have spare. Oh, exactly. I definitely would Ugandan if I moved to the US, of course, but sadly that's not really going to happen. No, typical, the phone's ringing, but hopefully somebody else will answer. And that's already been asked Triple B, and I said about 90. No, I don't have any ammo tins. I think one of my friends buys those for storage for random stuff, but I've never bothered. $30 is fine for a PBF, just don't expect the filters to necessarily be working. They're interesting masks, but sadly, because they're a cheap filter design, you're not going to get new filters for them now. But the actual PBF is a good mask, other than the fact it's a cheap filter mask, because the actual oral nasal cap is good. You know, like, it's a good, comfortable mask for what it is. Just a shame about the filters, really. Well, all my German Fleckton stuff's the actual surplus stuff, so they don't print the companies obviously in them, because it's not like reproduction, it's the original stuff. Also got this book the other day for anybody that's interested. It was recommended to me on Facebook, but it's going to be really hard to sort of flick through this in front of the camera. What might interest some of you, though, is the bit about asbestos. There you go. Now, there are certainly firearm ranges in the UK which are open to civilians, but there's not any near here. There was one that I was sort of interested in joining, and then sadly I think they've gone defunct. This is the coolest mask in my opinion. Yeah, I already showed the front cover, but there you go. Good back picture as well. Yeah, I bought this one on eBay. If you just search the name of it, see if you can find any for sale. Yeah, you can tweet it to me, just bear in mind I don't check Twitter very often. It's a possibility, but probably a very slim one, a nuclear war. The good thing, as I think I've mentioned before, is most nuclear weapons now are becoming lower sort of yield heads. They're more accurate, but sort of lower yield, which is kind of good for civilians. I've got no plans to get any new masks at the moment, unless I see something for a good price. Sadly no, because I've not seen anywhere near me that does HEMA type stuff that looks to be of a decent sort of, you know, realistic kind of thing. Well, in terms of proper coffee, there's an Italian one I've got for the coffee maker that's alright, and I can't remember what the name of that is off the top of my head. But the type I drink the most of is instant coffee, and it's the Aldi equivalent of a Nescafe Gold one. So if you know what Nescafe Gold is, instant coffee, like slightly better than cheap normal Nescafe, it's that, but Aldi's version tastes exactly the same, but it's much cheaper to buy. Not as far as I'm aware, Alex. I think there's only books like that which are specific for certain countries from a certain time period. Some of those robots, you know, are quite weird, aren't they? Like the dog one or whatever it is. Speaking of robots, have you seen the thing that's been going on in the UK at the moment? You can literally buy the modern Chinese gas masks on eBay. You just have to pay quite a bit for them. Yeah, that's it, Mike. You've got it. The drone that's been going on all day. One person, probably of a drone, has shut down all of Gatwick. Let's see if there's any updates to it. Let's have a quick look on my phone. Other than the fact they've called the army in, no end in sight to Gatwick disruption. When you say machine coffee and instant, do you mean things like a cafetiere, or do you mean like filter coffee, or do you mean like where I've got the Tassimo? Do you mean that? Supposedly there's a kind of metal they might be able to put in filters at some point as well that wouldn't expire, or it would take much longer to expire than charcoal, but I've not really heard of that being developed yet. If I had to get rid of one of my gas masks, I'd get rid of one of my duplicate GP5s, easy. Alright, I'll take the mask off now because I've had that on for nearly half an hour, so as usual it's your chin that starts aching before anything else. I'll probably have left the mark on my face, I assume, the CT12. Has it? Yeah, it's got left a bit of a mark. There we go. Basically, the Tassimo coffee tastes a lot more like real coffee. If you have somebody, you know, make you real coffee at like a coffee shop or whatever, where they have an espresso machine, you know, they grind the beans and do all that. Things like the Tassimo taste a lot more like that, because they've essentially got it's like pre-ground beans or something in a foil sachet, and then it uses the, you know, like pressurized water to kind of make a coffee of it. So it tastes more like coffee shop coffee. It's just that obviously costs a lot more per cartridge than it does just buying, you know, like a kilo of instant coffee. No, it's not snowing here anyway. Well, Santa Claus is meant to be from Finland, isn't he? Lapland, so I guess he'd either have an M61 or an M95. I've not seen anything about India having a domestically made gas mask, other than the fact that I think they've bought Russian masks before. I don't think you'd be able to get a fungus that would totally stop all types of sort of vapours. Most uncomfortable mask? Oh, that's tough. The GSR I find really uncomfortable. Right, let me just have a look and see if I can actually find a thing for pictures of... Now, when I search Indian gas mask into Google, most of the pictures coming up are random people in India wearing gas masks, or Native Americans with gas masks. So yeah, I can't find any actual pictures of like the Indian military. Oh, there's one picture when I type in Indian Army gas mask that looks like the French mask, which is also the same one as the Polish MP5, but I think it's, I suppose at the moment there's probably not a standard design they've got. Browning M2, if I can have a high caliber gun. No, I don't own a ghillie suit. That gets asked like every stream. For me, probably this. Actually, I'd say the Forshida F2 is slightly more comfortable than the CT12 for me. There's not much in it though, but it's going to depend on your face shape and everything. That's not going to be like a thing that for everybody it will be the same mask. It will depend a bit on your face shape and then on different masks based on that. So, how long do you think it will take till they sort out Gatwick? Because I'm finding this quite interesting. Sort of, you know, how ineptly they're dealing with it, that somebody can shut down the UK's second biggest airport for an entire day simply by flying a drone over it. M50 in my opinion, well, M40 has a 40mm filter, so that's sort of better, but the M50 overall is a much better built mask. I mean, ideally the C50, which is the M50 but in 40mm. Yeah, I have no idea why they can't just get an armed... Because they had armed police wandering around looking for the guy flying it, so I don't see why they can't just put birdshot in a shotgun and shoot it. I think it's more just how inept they are at dealing with some of these things, which makes you wonder, doesn't there, if there was some sort of terrorist attack involving drones, how would they even try and deal with it? Stupid, I think, of the new deactivation laws. The old ones were fine. The guns weren't really going to fire again under the old deactivation laws, so I don't see why they have to now make them stricter. My favourite would probably be chocolate milkshake, but I've not had any in a while. Supposedly it's one of the bigger drones, not like one of the little tiny RC helicopter ones, but you know, one of the like big quadcopter ones where you could fit a full-on camera on it. But I think it's because if it gets into the engine it could cause a plane to crash. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking, Peach, that if you were to use birdshot, it's only going to be sort of dangerous up to 20 to 30 yards, so if you're shooting that in the air at a drone, it's not going to be able to, you know, like break windows or hurt anybody, you know, like 50 to 100 yards away. I won't look on Twitter at the moment because obviously I'm doing the stream, but I'll have a look a bit later if I remember. Yeah, Merry Christmas to you. I don't use Samsung or Apple. I've got a Motorola on my phone. That serves me fine. It's way cheaper doing that. Well, probably they could use some sort of signal blocker, but they obviously haven't thought of that, so yeah, but I'm sure to shoot a drone down, it would work absolutely fine for that. If not, they can just go to the slightly bigger shot that isn't full-on buckshot, because obviously you go from something like you know, like triple aught, don't you, to something like number 7 shot, so I'm sure there's a number somewhere that would be good for a drone, but not dangerous for anything else. Mine's a G4, as far as I remember. I had a G2 before that, and that was quite good. Yeah, there's lots of stupid stuff like that, Mike, where, yeah, you can't sell them unless you get a new certificate, even if they wouldn't have to do anything on them. So it just penalises people that currently have them. You know, so it costs them a load more money just to be able to sell them again. Just wait for some more questions to come through now. No, I haven't seen that show. Wouldn't surprise me, Richard. But they did say something like because of legislative reasons they can't shoot it. It was something really stupid like that. They said, you know, that because of how the laws are written, they're not allowed to do it. It's a bit like I've seen before when there's been some of the rampages going on in America and they're not allowed to call in the National Guard because that would violate rights to, you know, actually get the Guard in to sort it out. Yeah, but I don't think you'd want to train Raptors to do that right next to a big airport, because then they'd just be mulched by the engines of planes. I've got a Viking axe somewhere. I've done old videos on that, and I've got like a little hatchet somewhere, but for the most part I don't have many axes now. Unless you count the halberd as an axe, or the billhook as an axe, but they're not really axes. Well, I'd love an S8, but they're very rare. Do you mean S6 or GP5? S6 is a much better mask than a GP5, but GP5 is obviously the world's most produced mask. No, young rail enthusiast, I can see your comment where you said, wait, YouTube isn't muting me, right, but I haven't seen any ones before that. So I think that's the first comment of yours that's come through, as far as I can tell. Oh, I need to set it to live chat, actually, because I'm on top chat. I wish it would just be on live chat by default. I don't think I have any Scandinavian camouflage patterns. No, I've not seen New Spider-Man. I don't even watch Marvel or anything like that. Last film I saw at the cinema was the new Halloween. And then the film I saw before that was Dunkirk, so I maybe go to the cinema like once a year. I go more often if there was stuff I wanted to watch, but generally there isn't. No idea how long I could wear one. It depends. If it's a life or death situation, you could probably wear it quite a while, but you don't sleep with one on because you wear it to evacuate from an area. Yeah, I already said I could read your previous message, young rail enthusiast. Now, there'll be a video tomorrow at the regular time. My videos are always scheduled, so they're never going to be at different times. I'm much more of a dog person than a cat person. Yeah, the new Dunkirk, I thought it was alright for the most part. I'm surprised they couldn't get more extras for it, to be honest, because it seems very, like, empty in a lot of places. No, I've no interest in seeing it, as I've already said. I'm not going to go and watch a film I've got no interest in it. Don't like Marvel films or whatever else. In terms of superhero films, I like stuff like Tim Burton's 1989 Batman, that's about it. I don't even know what that's about. I think I heard there was a film called The Mule, but I'd not actually looked into it. But my mule, he doesn't like people laughing. He gets the idea you're laughing at him. It's probably nothing to do with a Fistful of Dollars, though, is it? Oh, it is actually a Clint Eastwood film, okay. Let me look it up, I'm a bit more interested now. Oh, so it's about a drug mule, okay. Alright, it's only a cheap little Christmas hat. I found it in a bag. I don't know where it came from, but I thought I'd wear it. No, I don't really like Nolan's Batmans. The only one of those I really liked was Batman Begins. I didn't think they were bad, it's just I didn't understand why people loved them so much, to be honest. I've tried DCS World, but couldn't get into it. Maybe they don't have their masks on tight enough, I have no idea. Oh, I've seen lots of videos of riot police not even wearing gas masks, though, firing CS gas, so it's no wonder those end up coughing everywhere. Are you going to be streaming later on today, Mike? If you are, I'll try and watch it. If not, I'll probably watch a film later. But yeah, in regards to comic book movies, yeah, a lot of people constantly try and talk to me about those at work, and I just have to tell them I have no interest in them. Alright, cool, Mike, I'll try and catch that. Although I imagine when I finish this stream, I'll probably still have time to watch a film before you start your stream, so I'll try and do that. Yeah, if you wore one that's not got a filter on and there's no asbestos stuck anywhere in the mask, then it's totally safe. But obviously don't do it with something like a VM37 or a VM40. You could either get a Polish MP5, they're pretty good. Obviously a CT12 or FM12. BEM 4GPs are kind of alright, and you can get them for about 30 quid. Well, I'm not going to recommend any World War II masks in terms of actually being functional, but if you mean ones that look cool, light anti-gas respirators, Mark 4 or 5 respirators. GM30 I'm not a fan of, as I already said earlier in the stream. It's you know, it's like that rubber coated fabric stuff, fabric coated in rubber, which falls apart and mummifies really quickly. Yeah, potentially those, probably North Korea. You know, there's quite a lot of like rogue states in the sense that would probably do it. Alright, main difference. CT12, this is a CT12, has no drinking tube. It's a more lightweight mask. So there's no drinking tube inside. No drinking tube on the outside. So it reduces the weight of the mask and obviously means you're less likely to get any sort of leak with it. Whereas the FM12 has a drinking tube, so you've got a bit more weight to the mask and you've obviously got a drinking tube on the inside. Yeah, totally up to you. It depends if you want to actually wear it or whatever. If you want to wear it, I'd say get a Rep Pro one. If you want it as actually having a historical antique, get an original. Well, the charcoal in a GP5 filter is activated charcoal. The problem is it's got asbestos in the particle filter of a GP5. The M15 is my favourite Israeli mask because it's better than the 4A1. There's a modern Japanese gas mask, I can't remember the name of it. There's lots from World War II. I assume North Korea just uses either Chinese or old Soviet designs. A lot would probably work with stubble. I'd think Soviet mask would work fine with stubble. But the full-on beard, no, most wouldn't work. It depends on the model, weirdly enough. Because my FM12 isn't dual filters, but my CT12 is. Because as you can see on here, it's got the thing that you can unscrew. The blanking plug with the voice diaphragm in it. But my FM12 doesn't have that, but lots of FM12s do. So you just have to check if you're buying one, which generation of it is. Don't buy many new release games anymore, to be honest, because I think a lot of them are quite crap. I quite like older games. If they're made well enough, they could work, but most DIY masks aren't going to work very well by design, because they're not going to make an airtight seal. Yeah, I'd say GP5M is better than the GP5 simply because it's got a voice diaphragm on it, so people are going to understand you a bit better if you're speaking. That's the only real difference between them. I'll have a look at the PMK for them. Yeah, so it's got like the M50s or whatever, like it's like the M50s one because it's got the same sort of outsert thing. So it's basically a C50, isn't it, by the look of it? Yeah, for the most part it's a C50 copy. A couple of the minor differences, but not much on it. Because you're meant to wear a gas mask with an NBC suit in the event of like an actual thing kicking off. And it's mostly so you can hear better. Every NATO mask exposes your ears. No, fit-wise they're exactly the same. No, there's never been an explanation for that other than the fact they made two colours. Some people have said it's like one's a military one, one's a civilian one. That's not true because there's some military-only masks that were made in both colours. Some people have said it's a rank thing. There might be something to that, but I don't necessarily think it's true. Some people have said like white masks were the Soviet ones, the black masks were the export ones, but again that's not true, as often you can see mixed companies, like, you know, wearing both the coloured masks next to each other. So I really don't think there's actually a specific reason for it. I think they just made two colours. No, regular GP5 doesn't have a voice diaphragm, but the GP5M does. Oh, you mean the original kind of helmet mask? Yeah, it's a weird looking thing, isn't it? It's quite creepy looking, the Zelensky Command, however it's pronounced. But, I've seen there's a company that does reproductions of them, but they're quite expensive, so I've never bothered getting one. Don't know if I consider myself famous. I mean, I've got enough subscribers on here that I'm sort of YouTube famous, but I'd guess semi-famous would be the word for that, but I have very few people recognise me outside of YouTube. I've had a couple of people, but that's been it. GP5 is M was both, because it was called the GP5M for civilian use and the PMG2 for military use. What do you mean you are getting bullied, Demon Fire? I don't really get your question. I'm assuming it was some sort of valve, but I've not actually handled a real one, so I haven't looked too closely at it. Alright, cool, Chris. Hope you like them. Just wait for some more questions to come in again. Well, my personal advice would be, which you should be very careful about taking, is if somebody's bullying you, you fight back, because generally, if they're bullying you and you hit them back, they're going to stop. But that's not really good advice for me to give, so I don't really know what to say. Ignoring it is generally better than anything else, I guess. Yeah, my car's fine, thank you. Because they're probably long since expired NBC filters, I would guess. If you're buying new ABEC filters and they're in date, they're probably going to cost more than like a 20-odd-year-old NBC filter. I've got a Dacia Sandero, like the quite decent version of it, the Laureate or whatever it's called, but the cheapest car you can actually buy in a UK new. Because it got to the stage where my Golf was just costing like £1,000 to £2,000 per year to keep on the road, with bits that were going, you know, wrong with it and then needed replacing. So it worked out a lot cheaper to, you know, like basically spend a load of money on a new car that's then got a guarantee on it and everything than it was to try and keep the old one on the road that was just hemorrhaging money. Yeah, well, that's because with a lot of modern games, they just like rehash the same game every year with a new coat of paint on it, don't they? They don't really do anything new with them. Well, hazmat suits, if you mean like the top tier of NBC suits, the pressurized suits are technically the best thing possible. But for actual Fallout, all you really need is like dust overalls on with a mask. Passed on the third time. The theory test I did the first time, no problem. First time I did the driving test, I don't think I was really ready for it. Second time I did it, the bloke I don't think liked me, and he failed me like 2 minutes from getting back to the test centre on something I don't even know what it was meant to be. Third time, you know, I passed like with barely any minors, so that was fine. Not that I can think of off the top of my head that are equivalent to the Stalker games. If it's done up tight enough, yes. Especially if it was a full-on bodysuit that did up, you know, like near the neck or something, but it really depends. They're basically like raincoats, to be honest. That's the easiest way of thinking about it if you don't have an NBC suit. They're like very heavy-duty raincoats. Water's the only one I can think of off the top of my head. I think if you exposed it to massive amounts of chemicals and it was unsealed, obviously that would ruin it fairly quickly, but water's the one thing that you could, you know, like drop it in, which would invalidate it pretty quickly. No, I wouldn't know what to suggest for that though, Benjamin, because it would really depend, and I wouldn't want to give out advice like that if it might get people in trouble. I don't know, if it was really dense fog and you were breathing through it for quite a while, maybe? But, I don't think light fog would. Well, I've got to fit everything into it, haven't I? I've already said several times that one. It's out of frame. You have to take the insides of the lens clips out, put the anti-fog insert in and clip them back together. But the problem is lots of anti-fog inserts for the GP5 have long since dried out, so they're not going to work. That's why I've not done a video on it, because I think every time I've checked my Soviet anti-fog inserts, they've sort of discoloured or cracked. I'd say probably the Soviet Union or Russia, just because of the sheer amount of stuff that's come out of there. Well, I've never seen any original ones for sale. And, I mean, whether or not making one would break some sort of law in the UK, I don't think it would. But unless a company did like cheap reproductions of them, like at the same price as like medieval ones, then probably not. Well, it depends what sort of physical condition you're in terms of breathing more, because if you're used to wearing it, as long as you're not doing physical exercise, your breathing's going to stay the same. There's not going to be a mask that's particularly good for it. If it's CBRN rated, you are literally underkill, you know. You're like, well, I mean, like, the mask is really overkill if you're using that for decorating or painting, so it'd be fine. So any military mask you like the look of, get a new filter, stick it on, it will work fine. It depends how the valves are set up on those masks, so I don't know. If the valves are set up in a way you can install a filter on it, it would work. If they're not, it won't. I'm not sure what you're getting at with that, Benjamin, but I don't like tech companies gathering lots of information on people, if that's what you mean. Because Facebook does the same thing, don't they? Well, I've got some half-face masks that I do use, but a lot of the time if I'm doing something serious with chemicals, I just wear a full face mask just so it protects my eyes as well, and I don't have to think about putting like safety glasses on as well. Because obviously a full face mask is going to protect your entire face as well as your lungs. Alright, cool, Ashton. I don't have a wooden katana. I've got a real katana. I've done a video on it, but it's not live yet because, as said, all my videos like filmed a month in advance, roughly 3 weeks to a month in advance. But I don't have a bokken, if that's what you mean. Right, wait for some more comments to come through again. I'll stay on for another 5 minutes or so because it's nearly been an hour. I don't have any Honeywell gas masks now. I've seen some that look quite decent, but I've never seen them for sale, or if they've been for sale, they've been, you know, like the £200–300 price range, which I'd never pay for them. I actually prefer a hose and a really big filter in a satchel, but sadly there's not many companies that make box respirator style filters anymore. If you could buy new box respirator filters in 40mm, I'd actually be quite tempted to use masks with a hose and a big filter, but because most modern filters are all, you know, like that kind of size, I obviously prefer the masks like that. Honeywell make fans and like rotor blades for helicopters and things like that, helicopter engines. So they make good stuff. It's just whether or not their gas masks are good. But the masks I looked at look good. My favourite Christmas movie is Die Hard. No, I could not help you with algebra. I'm not into maths at all. I prefer left cheek if it's a smallish filter. However, I think I did a video on this where I explained the pros and cons, but if you're using quite a big filter, then the front, because at least the weight then is even on both sides of the masks. If you mean do I have like one for hospital patients, yeah, I've got a Polish, I think it's called the SR1, which is one they like tie around your head in a hospital bed. If you mean the World War II British one for hospitals, then no. I think you'll find Die Hard is a Christmas movie. You know, being a Christmas themed movie and everything. Well, because of the fact that it's a Christmas movie, that it takes place at Christmas, the soundtrack's all Christmas music. My favourite sword I own is my falchion, but I'm not going to bother getting it out now because I've only got a couple of minutes, you know, left on the stream. Yeah, I mean, if it was only like a scene in it was set at Christmas, then I wouldn't consider it a Christmas movie, but the entire thing's set on Christmas Eve, isn't it? So, yeah, I've got an AK, it's down there, but, I'm not going to get out, as I said, because I'm finishing the stream in a couple of minutes. As in, like, Russian Cossacks. No, I went magnet fishing, Peach. When they confirmed the legislation that swords weren't actually being penalised, I got a magnet with a bit of rope, found them again. No idea, Riley. Maybe a pH gas hood. That's the only thing I can think of in terms of potato sack mask. No, I can't do a Cossack dance. Right, okay, I'll wrap that up now. If anybody's got any little quick questions, pop them in and I'll try and answer them, but otherwise I'll finish now. Because so I want to watch a film before Mike does his stream in about 2 hours. Yeah, Merry Christmas to everybody then. I've not seen any questions come through. So yeah, cool. Right, see you all then.